starting us off at number 10 is the death of Alonzo Brooks. Now this one comes straight from Unsolved Mysteries, and it's a case that really pissed me off. 22-year-old Alonzo and his friends went to a party in rural Kansas that was about an hour's drive from their hometown. Now keep in mind, this is rural Kansas, the mentality is different, and the party was full of Hicks and Alonzo was the only black man there. Racial slurs were thrown around, and one by one his friends left the party thinking one of the other friends would be dropping Alonzo home. The next day his mum woke to find Alonzo still not home. She called all of his friends and no one could get a hold of him. After getting the sheriff involved and multiple search investigations taking place, Alonzo was nowhere to be found. A month after his disappearance, his family and friends were finally allowed to search themselves, and within 10 minutes they found Alonzo's body in a creek. He had been murdered in a hate crime, and this is supported by many people from that rural town writing in comments like they know whose house Alonzo's body was stored in, they know who killed him, or that they'll never reveal the names. However, after the reboot of the show, many tips have come in about the cases, and Alonzo's could be the first one to get solved. Actual names of the perpetrators had been forwarded to the FBI, which has caused the case to become reopened. Let's get those shitheads. Coming in at number 9 is the yogurt shop. December 6, 1991. Firefighters were rushing to the scene of a fire blazing inside a I can't believe it's yogurt shop in Austin, Texas. When they finally got there, the men found the dead bodies of 4 young girls in the back of the store. 2 were identified as employees, 17-year-old Jennifer Harbison and Eliza Thomas, 13-year-old Amy Ayers, and Harbison's younger sister Sarah. It looked like they had planned a sleepover at the shop after closing up, but they were found bound and gagged and all shot in the head. Eventually 4 men were arrested in connection to the murder, 2 of which actually confessed, but then rumors started going around that the confessions were forced. The 2 that confessed were convicted and the other 2 had their charges dropped. However, in 2009, both arrested men were released after lack of evidence against them. There was only 1 piece of DNA found at the crime scene, and it belonged to none of the 4 men. Most of the evidence was most likely lost in the fire, but as of February of this year, it was revealed that the FBI could have the key to solving the case, but they're refusing to release that information due to privacy concerns. The single strand of DNA found can't be used to identify a single suspect, but it could point to a person's male lineage, and this is known as family tree forensics. So my guesses are the FBI know the family of the man who killed the girls, but based on ethics don't want to reveal it to the families involved. But when was the last time the FBI didn't do something because it was unethical? At number 8 we have Julia Woodward. Back in 1979, 21-year-old Julia Woodward was at a San Francisco airport terminal hoping to find a job near Lake Tahoe. She was originally from San Rafael and was last seen at the airport. 2 months after she went missing, her skeletal remains were found and it seemed like she'd been hit in the head with a large rock. Her legs were zip-tied, she had been gagged, band-aids covered her eyes, and there was hair and blood everywhere. 40 years later, DNA on her pants led officers to murderer Charles Gary Sullivan. His attorney claimed that he must have slept with her, but that doesn't mean he killed her. But according to the Deputy Attorney General, the crime fits Gary's pattern since he was a prime suspect in 2 other murders where the bodies were found close to Julia's. When investigators started getting more interested in him, he fled Reno and changed his appearance. In 2007, he kidnapped and raped a girl in Nevada and was charged for it, so the pattern is definitely there, as is the evidence. Gary's lawyer filed a motion to withdraw from his defense, but Gary remains in custody and his trial is next January. So this case will legitimately get solved next year, which, I mean, woohoo. Filling at number 7 slot is Lily Oglesby. 69-year-old evangelist and mother of 8 was found brutally murdered in her own home back in May of 2004. Lily had no known enemies and her children claimed that she was always very cautious and would keep all of her doors locked. Her son Dal went on to say she would not open the door for someone she didn't know, implying the killer was an acquaintance of hers or maybe even a friend. On that dreadful night, Lily's son Vernon decided to check on his mum as he left work, but when he got to the house at around 9 p.m, the front door was ajar and the storm door was also unlocked. The TV was on but the living room was empty, so he then went to his parents' bedroom to find his mum in a pool of her own blood by her bed. She had died from multiple blunt force trauma and the case remained cold all these years. Recently, however, a retired detective asked Officer Tackett to relook at the case, and now she's rereading all the notes and submitting new DNA evidence. Forensic DNA investigation was only in its infancy back then, but now it's a lot more advanced. Tackett also tracked down friends, the family's neighbors at the time, and more. My bit is on the DNA evidence getting a match or link on the database, which will hopefully lead them to the killer. Now at number 6 is Caitlin Markham. Back in August of 2011, 21-year-old Caitlin Markham vanished from her home in Fairfield, only for her remains to be found in a wooded area 2 years later. Her dad Dave put out a public plea to Butler County Sheriff Richard Jones, asking him to reopen his daughter's unsolved case, claiming the Fairfield police just did an inadequate job. The sheriff said he would relook at the case, and it has since been active. The team is hoping that looking at the case with a fresh set of eyes will reveal something that was missed before. Now there are 3 possible theories to explain her death: accidental, homicidal, or drug overdose. The coroner ruled her death a homicide. PI J. Ryan Green was hired to work on her case, and he revealed that a new piece of evidence has been found and is being processed for DNA, but nothing further can be publicly said. These cases just leave you on the edge of your seat, literally, because you don't know what's gonna happen. Coming in at number 5 is Erica Baker. 21 years ago, 9-year-old Erica Baker vanished from Miami Valley, never to be seen again. Sergeant Bob Green and cold case detective Vincent Mason turned the cold case back into an open and active case as they tried to crack down and find out exactly where her remains are. Christian Gabriel confessed to accidentally hitting Erica with his van near an intersection in Kettering. Christian and his passenger Jan Franks both had criminal backgrounds and didn't want to call the police, so they shoved Erica inside the van and took off. He served 6 years in prison for that and was released in 2011 and is still refusing to say what he did to her. Officers are trying to put as much pressure as they can on Christian to reveal the information, to the point of trying to see if they can get another warrant for him just to scare him into confessing. Would he rather confess or go to jail for however many more years? At number 4 is Xavier Dupont de Leron. I know I mentioned this case in a recent video, but updates have been made, so I thought I would share. Back in April of 2011, the family's neighbor got suspicious when the Leron's home was boarded up and decided to call the police. The family was nowhere to be found until a letter came saying they had fled to the US since they were DEA agents. That was fake, and after several police visits to the house, the bodies of the wife Agnes, the 4 kids and 2 dogs were all found buried in their garden. Xavier's body was not there, and neither was his car. Everyone had been shot by a rifle that Xavier had inherited from his dad only 3 weeks prior. Apparently he was under crippling debt and had no money left, and as a count, he didn't want his children or the public to know the family was ruined. He didn't want his kids to suffer any hardships either, so apparently he thought killing them was the best thing to do. After he fled, he didn't even hide. He was still using his credit card at places and waved at a security camera in southeastern France before taking off with his rifle. If he did commit suicide, the body was never found, but if he fled, he's still wanted. Tips have been pouring in at left, right, and center about this case, and one seemed to catch everyone's attention. Someone sent in a photo of who they believed to be Xavier in Chicago. The man looked so much like him, but you could tell he had some sort of facial work done. So now that the search has been narrowed down to one city, the ball is really rolling. How can someone just kill their entire family and just still sleep at night? Filling at number 3 slot is 13 Minutes, April 15th, 2004. Hairdresser Patrice Andres is working a regular day at her salon Tambus Trim and Tan located in Georgia. After a customer called to cancel their upcoming appointment, there was a 13-minute window in which no one knows what happened, but it was believed that's when Patrice went missing. Despite long searches taking place, her body was found 600 days later, 11 miles from the salon. The body was found without her wedding ring, meaning whoever has it is our perpetrator. So the case went from a missing person's case to a murder investigation ASAP Rocky. Now in the Unsolved Mysteries episode, we see her husband Rob talk about their marriage being quite happy. Patrice's son Pistol, who she had from a previous partner, said the two were having trouble and that Rob was quite a jealous man. After Patrice disappeared, Rob locked Pistol out of the house since the two just didn't get along. Despite having an alibi, Rob said things like he carried around her skull for hours and slept with her ashes. Her friends claimed she hadn't been acting normal in the days prior to her disappearance, and viewers think the case can be solved with investigation into the cancelled appointment. Was it on purpose? Did that person cancel so Patrice could be alone for those 13 minutes? Submitted tips are forcing the direction of the case towards that, so hopefully the case will be solved sooner than we think. Now at number 2 is Nancy Theobald, November 17th, 1977. Nancy was a student at the University of Cincinnati at the time, and that day she was on her way home from a shift at Arby's. She was never seen again until a month later when her body was found near a creek near Beckett Road. Her arms were bound with rope, as was her neck, and she was partially naked. Heavy interrogations were done at the time of the crime, but unfortunately no arrests were made. These days, Butler County Sheriff Detective Joe Ventre has been working on the case and shared that based on previous evidence, new tests are being done and that he was not allowed to elaborate further than that. I hope that the new tests bring up some sort of results, because that poor family has been living with the worst case scenarios in their heads for 43 years. It's time to end their suffering. And finally, at number 1 is the Bear Brook case. Back in 1985, 2 bodies were found wrapped in plastic bags inside some barrels at Bear Brook State Park. And then fast forward to 2000, another 2 bodies were found. They were all either completely or partially skeletonized, but DNA profiling concluded that the woman was the mother of the youngest and oldest bodies found, and the 4th child is still unidentified, but rumored to be serial killer Terrence Rasmussen's daughter. In 2017, the woman was identified to be Denise Bowden, who had been missing since 1981, along with her daughter and boyfriend Bob Evans. DNA confirmed that a Robert Evans was the father of the middle body, but that was not his real name, and Denise wasn't the woman's real name either. Evans was soon exposed as serial killer Terry Rasmussen, aka the Chameleon Killer. Turns out the woman was Marilyse Elizabeth Honeychurch, and she had been missing from La Puente since 1978. She had 2 kids at the time and was dating Rasmussen. That year, around the time of her disappearance, she had left her home after arguing with her mum and never contacted her family again, because she was dead. Now, it's unclear if Terry is the one who killed them or who the mother of the 4th child is, but advanced DNA testing is being used to help finally close the case.
Starting off this countdown, we have Jeanette De Palma. In 1972, a dog was out playing in the forest when it brought a decomposed forearm back to its owners. From there, the search was on for the missing person's body. Turns out that it belonged to a woman named Jeanette De Palma. She was missing for 6 weeks, but eventually the rest of her body was found on top of a cliff. Now, what's weird is that the area surrounding her body was covered with occult symbols. Rumor has it that she was sacrificed by cult members or killed for pissing off Satan worshippers. But sadly, police couldn't determine the cause of death due to her badly decomposed body. So not only do we not know her cause of death, we also don't know why she was killed or by who. In our 9th spot today, we have the missing leg. On April 19, 1995, at 9:02 a.m., a bomb was detonated inside of a truck by a federal building in Oklahoma City. Sadly, 168 people lost their lives as a result of this attack. Now, while investigators were working on this case, they came across a detached leg in a military boot. They originally thought that the leg belonged to one of the victims, Lakeisha Levy. However, she was buried with both her legs, so it couldn't have been hers. In fact, her body was actually exhumed and analyzed. But because her body was embalmed, taking DNA tests from the leg she was originally buried with wasn't possible. So it's not known whose leg this belongs to. Was it Lakeisha's leg? If so, then who does the leg that she was buried with belong to? Investigators either think it's another victim or an additional terrorist. But to this day, nothing has been confirmed. In our 8th spot, we have the Copper Scroll treasure. In 1952, a copper scroll was found alongside other Dead Sea Scrolls in a cave. Now, this scroll was quite interesting. As its name suggests, the writing was engraved onto a copper scroll. When translated, it apparently talks about a bunch of hidden treasure. Now, this scroll is over 1900 years old. During that time, the Romans might have been out to capture the treasure, so they hid it in order to prevent them from finding it. So maybe this scroll is a key in finding the treasure. The question is the treasure real? Will we ever find it? And if it is real, then where is it hidden? In at number 7, we have the human feet. Since 2007, around 20 dismembered human feet have washed up on the coast of Salish Sea in British Columbia, Canada. What's weird is that the feet are often found still perfectly inside of their laced shoes, and investigators still don't know what to think. A couple of the feet have been identified, like one belonged to a missing male, one belonged to a missing fisherman, the other belonged to a woman that jumped off of a bridge. So it's believed that these feet belong to victims of terrible accidents or belong to people who took their own life. It's still very strange, like why have so many feet washed up in the same area? Now, police ruled out foul play, but some people believe that these people were gang members or victims of sacrifice. In our 6th spot, we have the farm murders. On March 31st of 1922, 6 family members were killed with a pickaxe on a farm. What's weird is that the murderer lived on the farm for 6 days after taking the lives of the family. The killer was taking care of the cattle and using their kitchen to cook meals for themselves. When police did find the bodies, the killer had already fled. Now, what makes this case scary and more chilling is that a previous maid said that she recently quit because she thought that the house was haunted. She heard voices and footsteps coming from the attic. So police think that the killer was living in the attic for quite some time before committing these crimes. To this day, the murderer has never been found. The files were sealed in 1955 and the house was eventually demolished. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Big Gray Man. The Big Gray Man is said to be a cryptid that haunts the summit of Ben Macdui, located in Scotland. Some people think that it's just a legend, whereas other people have actually seen this creature. It's said to be an extremely tall, human-like creature, being over 10 feet tall, with short hair and broad shoulders, with long arms. Needless to say, you don't want to encounter him. But like I said, there's been so many eyewitness reports that many think this beast is indeed real. To this day, scientists still haven't been able to come up with an explanation for the sightings. In our 4th spot, we have the Oak Island Mystery. The Oak Island Mystery is a 200-year-old legend that insists that pirate treasure is buried on Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Multiple attempts have been made to discover this treasure, however, none have been successful. In fact, several people have died trying to unearth this mystery. People believe that the treasure contains William Shakespeare's original manuscripts, Marie Antoinette's jewels, and other artifacts worth millions of dollars. Named the Money Pit, the supposed spot for the treasure is over 200 feet deep and is filled with booby traps to prevent anyone from reaching the treasure. The question is this legend true, and will we ever unearth some treasure? Because so far, nothing has been found on Oak Island. In our 3rd spot today, we have the Bigfoot. For sure, you have all seen that infamous blurry photo of the Bigfoot, walking, but is he actually real? Well, over the years, there have been a number of credible sightings of this beast, leading many to believe that he is indeed real. Take Michael Green, for example. He is a former US Army tank commander and fraud investigator who ended up encountering Bigfoot. Why would someone of that rank lie about Bigfoot? During a camping trip in a North Carolina forest, he claims he encountered this beast. He said that he woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of something approaching his tent. Soon, it was directly over his tent and let out a deafening roar that, I quote, scared the devil out of him. He claims that this beast was about 7.5 or 8 feet tall and striding with ponderous arm swings. He truly believes that this was Bigfoot. So could it be that the Bigfoot is indeed real? Let me know what you think. In our 2nd spot, we have the woman who named her killer. Now, this case is the definition of bizarre. Now, this case has been solved, but how it was solved still remains a complete mystery. Let me explain. So in 1977, a woman named Teresita Bassa was murdered and her jewelry was stolen. Police tried finding the perpetrator and the jewelry, but it was unsuccessful. That was until Bassa's coworker, Remy Cho, got in contact with her ghost. So Remy hardly knew her, okay? Then she just randomly started having visions about her. She kept seeing this man's face behind Bassa. So she decided to try and actually contact her from the dead. She sat down with her husband and actually channeled her spirit. She took control of Remy's body and told her husband the entire story of her murder. It was done by a man named Alan Showery. The two went to the police with this information and they investigated Alan and he was arrested for the crime. Isn't that wild? Like, literally, she got in contact with her spirit and the spirit told her how to die. Like, this whole story is just one big mystery. And in our number 1 spot today, we have the Dyatlov Pass incident. Now, this is one case that keeps me up at night. So in February of 1959, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out to travel the snowy mountains of Siberia. However, they all ended up mysteriously dying one by one. So during the night, something caused them to cut their way out of their tent and flee the campsite. The hikers were not properly dressed. Some were even found completely naked. Some had died from hypothermia, others were killed by physical trauma, and it was very gruesome. So what happened that night? Was it an animal attack? Military involvement? Infrared sound-induced panic? These are all some of the wild theories out there. But to this day, we still don't know the truth behind this incident.
Coming in at number 10, we have fast radio bursts. Fast radio bursts were first discovered in 2007 and are powerful radio pulses that emit more energy in 1 millisecond than the sun does all day. While researchers think they are a regular occurrence, we have only picked up the short bursts a dozen or so times in the past 12 years. The issue is that they tend to happen just once, although we may have found one that repeats itself sporadically. Looking at this will allow researchers to get a better look at it. Now, the burst has been named FRB121102. Of course! Catchy. This specific burst comes from 3 billion light years away and is 500 times greater than the others recorded. With FRBs getting attention, we are closer to finding out exactly what's causing them and where they're coming from. Coming in at number 9, we have the void in the pyramid. The Great Pyramids of Giza are still quite the mystery, and the plot has only thickened since the Heritage Innovation Preservation and the University of Cairo teamed up to scan the pyramids. Yes, scan the pyramids. Have we gone too far? You see, archaeologists are wary of actually disturbing the architecture of intact pyramids, but without doing so, they have no idea what's inside. I think they're just trying to avoid unleashing a new ancient curse. Very strangely, the pyramid housing the tomb of the great pharaoh Khufu showed a very strange void when it was scanned. Built in around 2560 BC, this mystery void has been locked away and secret for over 4,000 years. By scanning the pyramid with cosmic rays, the team behind the research estimate that the void of 98 feet long and 50 feet high, which actually makes it very, very big. It seems this void is completely sealed off from any known passageways inside the pyramid, so there's no way to get to it, leading the question, how is it even built? Well, these are the questions intriguing everyone, and it seems the mystery is on the cusp of being solved by none other than robot drones. Yes, robot drones! In order to minimize damage to the ancient structure, a team will drill a small hole and send in little robots to explore. I mean, how many more mysteries can be solved by deploying spy robots? Like, I'm here for it. Coming into number 8, we have the Zodiac Killer ciphers. The Zodiac Killer is the name given to an unidentified murderer active in North California from the late 1960s to the early 1970s. The murderer took the lives of 5 people but claims to have killed 37. The killer gets their name from a series of ciphers sent to press publications. The first cipher was 408 characters long and was decoded by a history teacher and his wife. It began, "I like killing people because it is so much fun. It's more fun than killing wild game in the forest." It was incorrectly spelled, but it was very creepy anyway. That was the only cipher to be cracked, although in 2011 it was thought the second cipher was close to being solved. Others say it's impossible though, as it may be total gibberish. Either way, as time moves on, it seems more and more likely that we will find the killer. In 2018, the Golden State's killer identity was revealed as 72-year-old Navy veteran and former police officer Joseph James DeAngelo. It took 40 years to find him, but better DNA technology came through in the end. With this in mind, I wouldn't write off the Zodiac Killer just yet. Speaking of murder cases, coming in at number 7, we have the Stephen Avery case. The first season of Making a Murderer came out in 2015 and the second part was released in 2018. They both got a lot of coverage. Both shed serious doubt on Stephen Avery's conviction for the murder of Teresa Holbach. Avery, as we know from the show, was wrongly convicted of sexual assault and attempted murder and served 18 years in jail for a crime that he simply didn't commit. A lot of holes have been found in the murder case against him, and his so-called accomplice, Brendan Dassey, had his conviction overturned on the grounds of confession as a result of coercion. Avery has a hotshot lawyer, Kathleen Zellner. Right now there is a lot of attention being put into getting to the bottom of what actually happened to Teresa, and I think that we are just months, if not I guess maybe years away from finding out what really happened. Making a Murderer Season 3 is gonna be juicy. Coming into number 6, we have the mystery of Flight MH370. Every day we get closer to finding out what happened to missing Flight 3H70 that disappeared en route from Kuala Lumpur International Airport in Malaysia to Beijing in China. Now the plane went missing 5 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, and fragments of the wreckage have purportedly been found, although there is no certainty that it definitely belonged to the plane. Well, it seems that now a $70 million ocean search has been
launched by a Texan company called Ocean Infinity. The mission is scanning 500 square miles of sea a day in a 3-month search. Now, some people think that the plane never crashed at all and was hijacked and landed. There are still a lot of top analysts looking into the disappearance, and I do have a strong feeling that time will tell on this one. Getting hairy at number 5, we have the Yeti. Last year, researchers announced that they were getting closer to discovering the truth behind rumours of the seemingly mythical Yeti, or the abominable snowman, or the Sasquatch, whichever name you fancy going with. It seems that multiple DNA samples thought to have been left by a Yeti are being examined, and so far, most have been linked to a species of Asian bear. The creature has been prominent in folklore since the 1900s, but more reasonable DNA readings may render the beast the stuff of legends once and for all. Coming in at number 4, we have the Bermuda Triangle. Is the mystery of the Bermuda Triangle on the cusp of being solved? John F. Mayer certainly thinks so, and he has been searching for lost Flight 19 for over 30 years. He has written a book about it too, and thinks that 2 of the missing planes crashed around Sebastian in Florida, and the other 3 crashed in the ocean around Daytona Beach. In a recent interview, he said, "Every day the technology, the detection equipment gets bigger, better and cheaper, and more folks are getting out there. They will find these airplanes." The Bermuda Triangle has been linked to a number of disappearances of a number of aircraft and boats. Now, British scientists believe that the cause is a giant rogue wave, although that wouldn't affect aircraft. Others just say the entire area is prone to bad weather. Coming in at number 3, taking it to my home country, we have Stonehenge. Stonehenge is a collection of monoliths that were erected somehow 5,000 years ago. Until recently, how and why the monument was built at a time before humans seemingly had the ability to haul such huge pieces of rock has been a mystery and a topic for great debate. We didn't even know where exactly the rocks came from until recently. It is thought that they were dragged from a quarry in West Wales, and the monument was built in 4 stages. It has now been revealed that the bodies found near Stonehenge likely came from Wales too, so had they gone on some kind of stony pilgrimage? It seems that finally a new study conducted by researchers from the University of Oxford has unearthed that stone highways were used to transport the stones to the Salisbury Plains. While we still don't know exactly why the monument was built, we are getting a lot closer to unlocking the mysteries. Coming into number 2, we have the disappearance of Amelia Earhart. The missing case of Amelia Earhart has stumped people for years. The female aviator made her name by being the first female to fly solo across the Atlantic, and she even received the Distinguished Flying Cross. She was also an author who wrote about her flying experiences, inspiring many more to follow in her footsteps. Unfortunately, the Pioneer pilot went missing in 1937 amid an attempt to fly around the globe in one swoop. She was well known in her day and had set many flying records, so when she disappeared, it was massive news. Many people went to look for her. She disappeared along with her navigator Fred Noonan over the Pacific Ocean near Howland Island. Until very recently, her death was quite the mystery, with many people generating wild theories. Some say she crashed into the ocean and died, others say she landed safely but was taken prisoner by the Japanese, who are hostile towards Americans ahead of World War II. Others say that she became part of a tribe. Well, it seems that modern DNA analysis may have the answer. Bones found on the island of Nicomarro have finally been linked to the pilot. They had originally been written off, but now testing so far actually points that they might be Earhart's. If they are hers, we will know that she died as a castaway. Okay, my favourite mystery at number 1, we have a space mystery, it's Mars. I really love starting and ending a list with space, because to me space is one of the greatest mysteries of them all. While we may be a long while off proving the Big Bang, we're just moments away from unlocking the secrets to Mars, and what a mystery that is. Humans first touched down on the moon 50 years ago, and since then we've been unlocking the secrets of space as fast as we can. After humans landed on the moon, we set our sights on our closest neighbour, Mars. We sadly lost contact with the last of our Mars rovers Opportunity earlier this year, but we have a brand new rover mission planned for 2020, and we hope to have a manned mission by the year 2030. The more research we do and the more data we get back from Mars, the closer we get to understanding what is going on over there. Some conspiracists think that there is an ancient civilization out there, and I guess that we'll find out.